Oh, Christmas tree, you are not in Jeremiah 10. That's the title. Now let's get started. Hear the word of Adonai speak to you, house of Israel. Here is what Adonai says. Don't learn the ways of the nations. Don't be frightened by astrological signs. Even if the nations are afraid of them. It's saying here in Jeremiah, do not go to zodiac signs and read them thinking that it's going to tell you what's going to happen to you that day. Zodiac signs does not guide your steps. God does. So you want to know what's going to happen to you? Go to God. What you need to know and what is important at that time, He will let you know. But don't go to anything but Him, because He knows the ending from the beginning. For the customs of the people are nothing. They cut down a tree in the forest. A craftsman works it with his axe. They deck it with silver and gold. They fix it with hammer and nails so that it won't move. It almost sounds like they're talking about a Christmas tree, doesn't it? But there's 2 points here. Number one, there was no reason to decorate a Christmas tree back during Jeremiah's time. None whatsoever. Number two, if you've ever had a Christmas tree, they put it in pots or they have stands for a tree to go on. But what they do not do is nail it, because that tree, when the holidays are over, are going to get thrown away. I guess I better say 3. Because unless I'm mistaken, usually you don't toss an idol out. If it's an idol or a false god that you're praying to, you normally don't throw it out the door. It usually stays in your house, right? Unless it's an artificial tree, usually a Christmas tree, if it's a real one, will get thrown out. It does not get nailed to your floor. Who's going to nail a tree to their floor? Like a scarecrow in a cucumber patch, it cannot speak. It has to be carried because it cannot walk. Do not be afraid of it. It can do nothing bad. Likewise, it is unable to do anything good. Now, why would Jeremiah have to say that if it's about a Christmas tree that's been decorated? What he's saying and what this is all about isn't a Christmas tree, but false gods that the nation was praying to and idolizing. They were idols. Because he was saying these false gods that you had a craftsman to carve into whatever God that you were worshiping can't speak, can't hear, can't help itself, much less help or hurt you. There is no one like you, Adonai. You are great, and your name is great and mighty. Who would not fear you, King of the nations? For it is your due, since among all the wise of the nations and among all the royalty, there is no one like you. Now, Jeremiah is giving God praise and worship. The reason of it is Jeremiah is exalting God above all the false idols, all the false gods of that time, and saying, God, you are the only God. You're the only one to fear. You're the only one to trust. You're the only one that can help us. He was exalting God over idols of that day. Some of the idols of that day were Baal, Asherah, Chemosh, Molech, the Queen of Heaven. All these, Baal, all these gods of that day and time is who Jeremiah most likely was talking about. not a Christmas tree. One and all, they are boorish and stupid. The teaching of their nothings is a piece of wood. In other words, the people that are worshiping them and the people that are carving them are wasting their time. They're wasting their time because they're praying to dead wood. They're praying to gold. Here's the thing, and I never understood this with people who, back then or even today, if you can carve it, if you control what it looks like, if you control where it stands or sits, if you control if it's what it is made of, what material it's made of, it's a very weak God. Silver is beaten into plates, then imported from Tarshish. Gold from Uphaz is worked by a craftsman and shaped by the hands of a goldsmith. They are clothed in blue and purple, all the works of skillful men. Now they're clothed. Now I know that people put tinsels on Christmas trees and Christmas balls, but this sounds kind of expensive. You're going to go get a craftsman and a goldsmith to shape it by their hands? That's going to take some money. And then you're going to clothe it in blue and purple. See, here's the thing. I know we got tinsels and stuff like that and everything, but listen, those idols, Baal, Asherah, they're also going to put that kind of stuff on them, and they're also going to form them out of gold and silver. They're going to put, if they put jewelry on, they're going to put them out of gold and silver. They're going to drape clothes over them to make it look like that. They're going to put expensive clothes because it's their God. They're false God, but it's still their God. So they're going to put the best that they have on it. But Adonai God is the true God, the living God, the everlasting King. At his anger, the earth trembles. The nations cannot endure his fury. Again, Jeremiah is exalting God, the God of Abraham, above the false gods, because he knows that he is the only true living God. And that all these other false gods, these idols that Jeremiah chapter 10 is actually talking about, is nothing more than works of man's hands. They have no power. They have no authority. They cannot do absolutely nothing. Do I believe that demons come in and control things? If people, yep, I do. But here's the thing. They are still false gods because they are not gods. They can't do that. Wood can't do nothing to you. That metal cannot do nothing to you. The God, Yahweh, has authority to build up and to tear down. You know, it's there and saying this. To say this, I'm going to say this right here. I know an army can come up against a nation, but that army can't do half the damage that God can do without even breaking a sweat. God can build things up for absolutely nothing. He created the whole universe from nothing. Just by speaking his word. That's power. That's sovereignty. That's proof of a true God. This is what you must say to them. The gods that did not make heaven and earth will perish from earth and from under heaven. Now this is gods. And like I said, Jeremiah would not have known anything about a Christmas tree. He would have known about idols and false gods like I mentioned before, like Baal, Asherah, and different ones like that. He would have known about them. And he would have been speaking about them in Jeremiah 10. God made the earth by his power, established the world by his wisdom, spread over the sky by his understanding. When he thunders, the waters in heavens roar. He raises clouds from the ends of the earth. He makes the lightning splash in the rain, and brings the wind out from his storehouses. At this, everyone is proved stupid. Okay, let's go back up. Here, Jeremiah, again, is exalting God by praising God for what he's able to do, about his sovereignty and what his abilities are, about how powerful he is, how strong he is. And at the same time, he's trampling all over the false gods by saying, you are absolutely nothing. You can't do nothing. At this, everyone is proved stupid, ignorant. Every goldsmith put to shame by his idol. The figures he casts are a fraud. There is no breath in them. Now, first off, I don't know of anybody who thinks their Christmas tree is actually breathing. I'm assuming that people who have idols or have a statue that they pray to thinks that represents a God that can actually breathe, think, or speak. I don't know of anybody I don't personally know of anybody who sits and prays to a Christmas tree thinking that Christmas tree actually represents a God that can speak to them, that can breathe, that can see, that can hear. Again, we have to take in context what Jeremiah is actually speaking about. When you isolate scripture verses out of a chapter, you can make it into anything you want. That's why I keep saying, read it for yourself, study it for yourself. Because you can turn anything into anything you want if the person's not willing to put effort to studying themselves. Once you study it yourself, you'll know who is and who is not teaching the actual Word of God. There is no breath in them. They are nothing, ridiculous objects. When the day for their punishment comes, they will perish. They will perish. You take an idol, any idol that was created back in that time, or even today. I'm going to guarantee you that when God comes, your idol is not going to be able to stand. It will be knocked down. It will be done away with. And let me say this, and I'm going to make some Christians very angry. Even the statues and pictures of Yeshua, you're not supposed to make images of him. Not at all. Now I know some people do it because they think, well, he's the true God. Yes, he is. Yes, he is the true God. But we're still not supposed to make images because that can turn into an idol. And let's say this, even though he walked the earth as a human being, how many of us really know what he looks like? I've heard him. He spoke to me. He's spoken to me. But I've never actually seen him. So, if somebody else has seen him, they could have. But there's so many deceitful people out there that will say they see something that they've never seen. Say that they heard things they've never heard. So I would take everything with a grain of salt. And the first thing I would do, and that goes with me too, pray and ask God if he actually spoke to them. If they've actually heard anything, even if it's something that they may have mistaken. Make sure that person is not intentionally deceiving you. And I'm talking about myself too. He has spoken to me. But don't take my word for it. Pray and ask him if I'm telling the truth. Jacob's portion is not like these, for he is the one who formed all things. Israel is the tribe he claims as his heritage. Adonai Savat is his name. You who are living under the siege, gather your belongings off the ground. For here is what Adonai says. At this time I am slinging away the inhabitants of the land. I will distress them so that they will feel it. This is talking about what's happening, or what at that time what was going to happen to those who were committing idolatry. That's what Jeremiah is talking about. Now we know that he kept a remnant. God did, because I taught that in Jeremiah 12, I think just yesterday or the day before. So we know that he doesn't completely destroy Israel, but he does leave a remnant. But this is talking about punishing for the idolatry. Woe to me because of my wound. My injury is incurable. I used to say it's only an illness and I can bear it, but now my tent is ruined. All its cords are severed. My children have left me and are no more. There is no one to set up my tent again, no one to raise its curtains. The shepherds have become stupid. They have not consulted Adonai. This is why they have not prospered, and all their flocks are scattered. Now we can take that as literal. We can also take that as figurative. We can take that like the shepherds back in that day was not doing a very good job at what they were supposed to do as a shepherd. We can also take it like he's talking about leaders in the church. The rabbis back then, and even today. Here's the thing. I think today we care too much what other people think. We compromise way too much. Is it okay? It's okay to be friendly. It's not okay to let people control what you do. Never compromise with the devil. Plain and simple. Listen, a noise is coming closer. It's coming closer. A great uproar from the land to the north, to make the cities of Judah desolate, a place for jackals to live. Now, I think there's talking about I'm drawing a blank right now, but I can tell you right now what it is here in a second. Or maybe not. I don't want to take a lot of time up. Assyria. I believe they're talking about Assyria in this one. Coming in, going to, or already have, or going to conquer Judah at that time. Adonai, I know that the way of humans is not in their control. Humans are not able to direct their steps as they walk. Now here, that's really profound. We think that we do everything on our own, but we don't. We can't. We don't have the mind to know what's going to happen in the future. We can think we know, or we can guess. I can tell you by experience what I have guessed, that I've even said, I'll never do that. A few years later, turned around and did it. Was I lying when I said I would never do it? No, I sincerely believed that I would not. But I did. That tells you that if you've ever done that like I did, that you don't know the ending from the beginning. You don't know where your steps are going to go. Only God does. And only He knows what will you do and what will you never do. Even if it's not good. He knows if you're going to do it or not. Adonai, correct me, but in moderation, not in your anger, or you'll reduce me to nothing. Pour out your anger on the nations that do not acknowledge you. Now, he didn't say that none of the nations acknowledged him. He said on the ones that do not acknowledge you, pour out your fury. So to me, that was Jeremiah acknowledging that there were some Gentile nations that actually acknowledged, or at least people in those nations that acknowledged and loved Yahweh. Also on the families that do not call on your name, for they have consumed Yaakov, consumed him and finished him off, and laid waste to his home. Now, I hope this helps you, because there are people that are trying to make people feel guilty about celebrating Christmas. Let me make it clear. I celebrate Christmas in my own way. I haven't decorated since 2018. What's on that table is the most I've decorated since 2018. But that has less to do with religion and more to do with something totally different. But Here's the thing. I'm going to tell you right now. I do not celebrate a pagan god from thousands of years ago. I celebrate Yeshua. I do not care what day it is, what day it isn't. I know that he was born. And I know that December 25th is more likely not the right day. But I also know that there's not a day on the calendar that was not created by Yahweh. So no matter how many pagans celebrate or worship some false god on any given day, I'm not going to allow them to take that from me, for me to have the right to worship and praise and acknowledge the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. I don't care if there is a million pagans celebrating or worshiping a false god on that day. I still have a right to worship and praise my God on that day. And that will not be taken from me by guilt trips or by accusations. Because I do not bow my knees to a tree. I do not bow my knees to an idol. I do not bow my knees to any false god. I bow my knees to Yahweh. I bow my knees to his living word that came in flesh to die for the sins of the world, Yeshua. And I bow my knees to his spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh. And that's all I bow my knees to.